Привет! Как дела? У меня все отлично. I hope that you are doing great too today. And welcome to the second lesson about Russian vocabulary and grammar. Last time we learned how to say hi and bye to our friend and how to ask and answer how are you. And I promised you that next time, which is today, we will talk about addressing people more formally. So let's remember once again, when we say hello to our friend, what do we say in Russian? Привет. Now, this is a version of hello that we use with friends and family, remember? What if we want to address someone in a more formal setting, our colleague or our boss? Maybe we just come to some official building, maybe we come to a shop, to a bank, and we want to talk to a member of staff. There is a different version of hello that we use. Let's listen. Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. It's a bit of a long and difficult word. And you see there are so many consonants in this word. In the spelling, you see that we spell it in Russian as здравствуйте. But in fact, there are so many consonants that we just omit this v in the middle. We just don't say it. We say здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Literally, this word means be healthy. I wish you to be healthy. But of course, this is the historical meaning of this word. So nowadays it just means hello. So how would you say hello to, for example, a person in a bank, a staff member of a bank? Здравствуйте. In fact, there is also a shorter version of this word. It's so long and difficult that even Russians are too lazy to say it like this. And you can often hear it shortened здравствуйте, здрасте, здрасте. It often becomes just здрасте because it's easier to say it like this. But as a beginner, I wouldn't recommend you to use shortened versions for two reasons. A, to make sure that you know the long version perfectly well, and B, so that you have some time to get used to Russian and to understand when it is acceptable to shorten words like this and when it's not really acceptable. But the reason I'm teaching you this early on is because you will often hear it. So when you hear it like this, you will be able to understand what people mean. A shorter version of здравствуйте is здрасте. But as a beginner, again, I recommend you to stick to the full versions for now. So здравствуйте. Здравствуйте. Okay, so that was hello. How do we say goodbye in a more formal setting? There is also a different version for that. Let's first remember, how do we say bye to our friend? Пока. Or even bye-bye. Пока-пока. But in a more formal setting, there is again a different phrase that we use. До свидания. До свидания. До свидания. So this phrase consists of two words. The first one is do, which becomes da when you put them together like this, because the o here is not stressed. It's a phrase that we pronounce like one word together, right? So this do, which becomes da, means until, and the second word is свидание. Свидание means like we seeing each other until we see each other again. Maybe it can help you to think of the French word if you ever learned French, because they also have a similar way of saying goodbye, like until we see each other again. До свидания. Notice that свидание ends in ye, as it is, but then in this phrase it changes. Yeah, it's just a phrase that you need to learn together. До свидания. In fact, in contemporary Russian, свидание doesn't really mean re-seeing each other, seeing each other again anymore. It usually means a date, as in a romantic date with someone. But in the past, it had this broader sense of just seeing someone again. And this meaning is kept in this phrase, which means goodbye. До свидания. Notice also that in the writing, in the spelling, we have свидания, but in speech it becomes свидания. Again, to make it a bit easier to pronounce, до свидания. Instead of ния, I would usually say ния. До свидания. So how would you say goodbye to, for example, your colleague? До свидания. Okay, great. Now, do you still remember how to ask, how are you? What do we say in Russian? We don't really say how are you. There's a phrase that means something like how are things? How are your things going? So what was it? Как дела? Do you still remember how to say how are you with you? There's also a special phrase, yeah, when we want to specifically say how are your things going. What will we say in Russian? Как у тебя дела? Как у тебя дела? Yeah, у тебя. From which pronoun is it? What is just the you by itself? The you that we learned last time. What was it? Ты. Ты, right. And you probably remember that I told you that it's also an informal you. In fact, in Russian, there are two versions of you, just like in many other European languages. So, ты and the form у тебя is the informal version that you would use with your friends and family. So, what if you want to ask how your colleague or your boss is, for example? You can't say как у тебя дела, because this means you would address them informally. So to address them more formally, you need the other you. So the formal you is вы. 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 Again, it has this sound. Yeah. And the only difference is the first letter. So your friend would address you as ты, and you would address your friend as ты, but with your boss or with your colleague or with a member of a staff of someplace you would use вы. Now, as for the spelling of this вы, it has two different spellings, but you can see both of them. It can be spelled with a lowercase v or with a capital V. In fact, this is because вы can mean you as in the formal address to someone, like, showing your respect to them, or it can mean just a plural you, yeah, many people. And when we address many people, well, it doesn't matter if you would address each of them personally as they or we, they still become вы. Okay, and how do we differentiate when it's plural you or when it's you, like respectful you? So there is a way to do it by choosing the lowercase or the capital version of the letter V. So when it is plural you will always write it with a lowercase V. But when it's respectful you to one person or to many people, but you address them with respect, the correct way to spell it would be with the capital V. However, nowadays rules are changing a little bit, and people talk online a lot, and online people don't really like using capital letters much. So you can often see вы in the meaning of respectful you spelled with a lowercase letter nowadays. So don't be surprised about that. But still, the correct way is still to spell it with a capital V. Okay, so that was just you as it is. Yeah, вы, the respectful you. In the phrase, how are you? You remember that we say, how are your things? How are things at you, at your place? As for you, how are things going? Do you remember the phrase with the informal you? How do we say that? У тебя. Now we need to change this вы so that it becomes у something. So the вы also changes, but it doesn't follow the same pattern. It becomes у вас. У вас. У вас. Again, you know the u, it means at, and вас is the form of the respectful or plural you that you use with u. Yeah? Just like I, me, it changes. You in English doesn't change, but you probably understand that it's the same sort of change like I and me, just for the word you. Вы, у вас. So how would you say, how are you? How are your things when you address someone respectfully? Как у вас дела? Как у вас дела? Как у вас дела? Now, let's talk a little bit about when we use ты and when we use вы. How do we know which one to choose in each particular situation? Of course, this can be a bit tricky because, well, in English, you don't really have this differentiation. But generally speaking, you use вы when there is some kind of a social distance, some kind of a social hierarchy involved. So you could compare it to the use of Mr. or Ms. so-and-so in English. But of course, each particular situation may differ. Yeah, different cultures can see different situations in different ways. And Russians probably use we somewhat more often than English speakers use Mr. or Miss. So let's look at some examples. When would we use we? As I said, when you talk to a member of the staff of some kind of a official place, yeah, like a shop, a bank, a post office, a restaurant, you would like to show the respect to them when there is some kind of a customer and service provider relationship. Both parties would probably use we, address each other formally and respectfully. Then when else? Of course, some official correspondence, some official meetings, political meetings, business meetings, and so on. As for companies, inside a company, you would usually address your colleagues and your boss as we as well, and they would address you like this back. Now, this depends on the company, and sometimes some companies may choose to have this informal setting inside the company, especially if it's maybe some small company that started as a group of friends, something like this. But the general rule will probably be that you will address and will be addressed as we. When else? When you talk to strangers, it's better to use we, especially if it's someone much older than you. You would say we to them. Now, you might hear the opinion that, well, if someone addresses you we, then you can return it. This rule works in some situations, but not always. So, for example, when we talk to a much older person, the person who is much older than us will probably say "ты" to us. But it doesn't mean that we can say "ты" to them. So we are probably expected to say "вы" to them because, well, we show respect to this person. Then there are also situations like a classroom, teacher-student. Again, the teacher will probably say "ты" to the students, especially if it's children. But the students are expected to say "вы" to the teacher or to the professor at university. So in any kind of teacher-student relationships. As for children, you would probably address them as "ты," even if it's not your child, even if it's not someone you know. It's just generally fine to say "ты" to a child. And children among themselves always use "ты." They never use "вы" to each other. And teenagers, again, always address each other as "ты." And in fact, young people, young adults, nowadays also tend to use "ты" a lot more often, unless it's some really formal setting and they have to use "вы." Even just in speech when they meet each other for the first time, and it's not some especially formal setting when they just, well, meet someone new. You can probably hear them address each other "ты" straight away. So people of the same age, if it's not some really formal setting, will probably address each other as "ты," especially younger people. Older people might still use "вы," even if they are the same age, just to be, well, respectful, just to be on the safe side. So if you're not sure To be on the safe side, I would address you to use вы. But if it's some kind of a familiar situation that I've just described, you know what to use, you know for sure that it should be ты, then feel free to use ты. Yeah. So when do we use ты? Again, with friends, with our family. But notice that, well, with immediate family, it's always ты, but the further away relatives, it kind of depends on the family and on the particular relationships between people. So sometimes they just all use ты, but in other families, the younger people might be expected to use вы towards the older ones, even though they're relatives. Maybe they're a bit of a further away relatives, and they might use вы to address them. Okay. Well, I hope that this gives you a general idea of the situations you might encounter, and well, where you are expected to use ты and where you're expected to use вы. Now, sometimes you meet a person and just to be on the safe side, maybe you start the conversation as вы, but then the person can offer to change and to start addressing each other as ты. And then the person can say, давай на ты. Давай на ты. So here is a phrase of 3 words. The first one is давай. Давай. Давай means let's. На ты. На is a preposition which means on. So на ты, on the informal you. So using the informal you. So it means let's use the informal you. Let's talk using the informal you. Давай на ты. So if you hear your new acquaintance say to you давай на ты, then it means you're free to use ты with them from now on, and they will not be in any way offended by it. So let's revise once again. If you, for example, if you work in a company and you are talking to your Russian colleague, which pronoun would you use? Which you would you choose? Вы. Вы, unless you become close friends. If you become close friends outside the working setting, you might still keep ты inside the working setting. Well, that depends. But generally, the general rule, you would use вы with a colleague. Now, what about you come to a party, an informal party with friends, and you meet some new person there? What would you probably use with them? Ты. You would probably say ты straight away because it's an informal meeting and everyone is just friends there. So it's fine to use ты with them. Okay. What about when a teacher says to you ты and you're a child? Would you still would you follow their suit and say ты to them? No, you wouldn't. You would address them as вы, out of respect to the teacher, right? Okay. Now let's learn a couple more important words. So since we started talking about politeness, addressing someone politely, there are a few more words we need. Let's go back to the shop setting. How would you address a shop assistant? Probably вы, right? And now, what if you want to buy something and you say, well, I want this thing. Of course, we don't know any nouns yet, any words of what things are called, but there is also always the option of just saying, this thing here, please, right? And just pointing at it. So let's start by learning just that. So you would say, вот это. This thing here, вот это. Вот это. Вот это. So it's two words, вот and это, put together. We pronounce them as one word, basically, yes, because they make this phrase together. So it becomes вот это, like one word. So it means this thing here. Give me this thing here, please. So вот это, and then you probably want to say please. So please is a bit of a difficult word too. It's пожалуйста. 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 So here again you see this y in the writing, and also you can say пожалуйста, but this y sound often gets omitted too, because again there are too many consonants in this word. Just like здравствуйте, you omit the v in the middle. In пожалуйста can become пожалуйста without the y, just to make it a bit shorter and get rid of an additional consonant in this word. So пожалуйста or пожалуйста. Пожалуйста is probably the version that you will hear more often. So how would you say please? Пожалуйста. Пожалуйста. So if you come to a shop and you want to buy something, you don't know what it's called, but it's right here in front of you, and you just say, this thing here, please. What do you say in Russian? Вот это, пожалуйста. Вот это, пожалуйста. Вот это, пожалуйста. Now, when the person in the shop gives it to you, they would say again, вот. Вот. So it's the first word from вот это. Вот just means here. Here, not as in opposed to there, not as in here and there, but here as in here you are, here you go, this is for you, take it, here, вот, вот. And then they can also make it polite, so they would again use the same word for politeness. Пожалуйста. Вот, пожалуйста. So, пожалуйста has several different meanings, and it can be used in different situations. So you can ask for something using пожалуйста. Вот это, пожалуйста. Or you can give something to someone, and again it adds a bit of politeness. Yeah, so you would say вот, пожалуйста. Here you are. What do you answer? Of course you want to say thanks. And this is спасибо. 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 How do you say thanks? Спасибо. And after this, the person will probably say, you're welcome. And again, we don't need to learn any new words. We already know it. It's the same word as please. What is it? Пожалуйста. Пожалуйста. So how do you say you're welcome? Пожалуйста. So I say to you, спасибо, and you answer, пожалуйста. The same word. So it has 3 different functions like this. You can use it in the same conversation in 3 different ways. You can say, вот это, пожалуйста, this thing here, please. Вот, пожалуйста, here you are, in a polite way. And then you say спасибо, and the answer will be пожалуйста, you're welcome. All right, I hope that this lesson was informative for you. Now let's look at a couple of situations. Situation 1. Здравствуйте. Как у вас дела? Здравствуйте. Хорошо, спасибо. А у вас? У меня тоже, спасибо. До свидания. До свидания. Situation 2. Здравствуйте. Вот это, пожалуйста. Вот, пожалуйста. Спасибо. Пожалуйста. Well, did you understand everything? If you're still struggling with something, you can watch this video again, watch the dialogues once again, and of course, look at the transcript of the dialogues to understand everything. Thanks for watching this lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it and learned the difference between the and the. And now you know how to address people politely and also some words of politeness, such as пожалуйста and спасибо. Please do the exercises and the test after this lesson, and I'll see you next time. We'll learn some more interesting things, such as saying other ways of hello, such as good morning. So this will be next time. For now, goodbye, пока-пока, or if I want to be more polite, до свидания.